Good news! I just got my hands on a brand new Dacia Sandero. Hi guys, Eric here and welcome back to my channel. Today I will be having a look at this 2020 Renault or Dacia Sandero 66 kilowatt expression. It comes equipped with a 0.9 litre 3-cylinder turbocharged engine and produces 66 kilowatt and 140 newton meters of torque. It is also very cheap in price and execution, but that's not to say that it's bad value. That Renault badge is actually a bit misleading. It is really a car make by Romanian car manufacturer Dacia. Dacia was established in 1966 and built Renault 8 under license as the Dacia 1100 from 1968 to 1972. Then, in 1969, it started production of the Dacia 1300, essentially a rebadged Renault 12. It continued production with many facelifts until 2004, 35 years of basically the same design. Dacia was bought by Renault in September 1999, with Renault seeing the Romanian company as a great entryway into the Eastern European market. At first, they integrated Renault parts into their existing models such as the Supernova and the Silenza, which boosted sales considerably. But all this was merely to prepare the workforce for the first real alliance, the Logan. The Logan, a 4-door sedan, began production in 2004. Doesn't sound too interesting, but it would become the best-selling car in Romania, with 43% of all Dacias in Romania being the Logan. It was exported to many other markets, including South Africa, although it wasn't as successful here. Personally, I always thought there was something rather off about its styling, particularly the rear. I wasn't the only one who thought so, as it received quite a lot of criticism. It didn't matter though, as the Logan was the launching pad for a whole myriad of cars. In 2008, Dacia launched a hatchback version of the Logan called the Sandero. The rear styling was much more attractive and modern, while the price and the standard equipment drew in a slew of new customers. This is where it all started in South Africa. People here really took to the Sandero, mainly because of its spacious cabin, generous standard equipment, and, particularly in the base spec, inexpensive price tag. It was offered with two naturally aspirated engines, a 1.4 litre with 55 kilowatt and 112 newton meters, and a 1.6 litre with 65 kilowatt and 128 newton meters. Both were mated to a 5-speed manual transmission. They were known to be reliable and parts weren't too expensive either. In 2014, the second generation was released locally. Luckily, Dacia knew not to mess with the formula that already worked. It was underpinned by the same platform as the Duster from 2009. It was praised for its standard equipment and inexpensive price. It also received a new 0.9 litre turbocharged inline-3 engine producing 66 kilowatt and 135 newton meters of torque. In 2017, the Sandero received a facelift with small changes such as the new grille, C-shaped LED daytime running lights, and a new steering wheel. The same engine was carried over from the pre-facelift. To me, it looks good, even in this entry-level expression trim. It has a bitchness about it, where its rivals tend to be more feminine in their design. It looks as though it means business. The rear looks a lot like the pre-facelift, which isn't really a bad thing. It looks good enough, if a bit dated by modern standards. The bumpers and door mirrors are all body-colored, which is great for an entry-level car, but you do have to make do with steel wheels. All in all, a great-looking, if a bit dated, offering from Renault. Get on the inside and you start to realize where Renault, or Dacia, has saved some money. The steering wheel is beautiful with real metal accents and piano black trim around the Renault logo. The dials are also very, very pretty, if a bit old-fashioned. The digits on the dials are clear, although they are on the small side. On the expression trim, you don't get a trip computer as standard, which makes this monocolor drives information display a bit underwhelming, as it only shows the total distance traveled and a digital readout for the fuel level. A big drawback with the Sandero is the perceived build quality and use of materials. It makes sense considering this car is of the budget variety, but I have never seen plastic this thin, this movable. The construction feels extremely loose, as if there are a couple of bolts that need fastening. The doors, when poked, can be vented inwards, and when you knock on it, the hollow sound emanates around the entire cabin. It does not feel like a quality product. Thankfully, reliability helps to make up for this, as there aren't any massive problems with the Sandero. Parts are also relatively cheap compared to its rivals. On the doors, you get two different textures of black plastic, and the grab handle is made out of faux carbon fiber. Now this helps to break the wall of black a bit, but the plastics are of the very hard variety, even on the door's armrest. The window switches are rather curious. The driver's window is one touch, and the switch gives fantastic feedback when you press it. The passenger window is not one touch, and the switch feels extremely hollow, and the noise it makes sound so cheap. And these two switches are right next to each other. Then, below the steering wheel, there is this big protruding knob for the headlight levelers. It just screams afterthought. The rest of the cabin looks alright, if a bit entry level. Normally, I don't like faux carbon fiber trim, but it helps to lift the cabin from the inundation of black plastic. Then there is this small metal trim that frames the climate vents and the stereo. The design of these air vents are very nice indeed. I really like the honeycomb structure right behind the vents. I also quite like the climate controls. It has a chunky look to it. If I squint my eyes, it almost reminds me of those found in the L322 Range Rover, but these feel a bit cheaper. Shocker. The seats, though, are so attractive. They are finished in different textures of fabric and accented by white top stitching. It must be said, though, it doesn't provide the best of lower back support, and the driver's seat isn't height adjustable. The stereo unit is rather interesting. It offers everything you might need when it comes to connectivity, something that is very important to me personally. You get auxiliary input, USB input, and Bluetooth audio. The two speakers you get as standard on the expression trim also perform surprisingly well, offering decent bass and volume. The ergonomics, however, is just bizarre. In the center of the unit, you get a big dial, which you would immediately assume is for the volume. But no, it's for the radio tuner. The volume is divided between two physical buttons on the left side of the stereo unit. Maybe they did not think that one through. Thankfully, like all French cars out of 2002, there is audio controls right behind the steering wheel on this protruding fixed third stalk. When it comes to storage, the Renault does rather well. You get a very big undampened glove box, a big storage area on top of the dash, two relatively shallow front cup holders with another small storage area for a credit card, average size door pockets, a Tetris-shaped storage compartment underneath the handbrake, and a single deep cup holder for the rear passengers. Speaking of rear passengers, because of the bigger overall size of the Sandero, rear space is fantastic at this price point. There is enough knee room for the average size male adult and plenty of headroom. The front seats are also raised slightly so you can really tuck your feet under them for extra comfort. The car is also rather wide, so you can carry 3 people abreast at a pinch, a tight pinch. Rear passengers also have access to some small door pockets and their very own headrests. Sadly though, the rear seat backs are rather hard, and for the rear passengers you only have manual windows. Thankfully, both outer rear seats come fitted with ISOFIX. The boot, however, is very big. At 328 litres, this is a serious amount of space at this price point. The seats also fold down in a 60-40 split. However, they do not fold completely flat, and there is a big ridge hindering through loading. There is also a load lip to lift heavy things over. Still, you can't argue with that amount of space, and you cannot argue with a full-size steel spare wheel. It gets better though, because at this price point, no other car can match the Sandero when it comes to safety, scoring a 4 out of the possible 5 stars from the prestigious Euro NCAP. So how does all this translate out on the road? When starting this engine from cold, I feel a rather retro vibration coming from the engine bay. When the engine heats up, however, that vibration lessens. The gear lever feels nice and precise, although there is a slight rubberiness to its operation. Because of the Sandero's relatively small dimensions, navigating around traffic and small spaces isn't as fear-inducing as you might think. It must be said, however, the turning circle is not that tight, and the steering, while by no means heavy, could be a bit lighter, especially considering that this car will spend most of its life in and around town. Fortunately, visibility is excellent thanks to large windows all around and thin A, B and C pillars. The clutch's operation feels progressive and the brakes feel strong. All of this adds up to make a very pleasant experience when, for instance, driving to the shops. Rush hour traffic is also made just a bit easier by an extremely peppy engine, as well as heel hold assist. I thoroughly like this engine. It is much more lively than the 66 kilowatt output would suggest, even if it only really comes alive after 3,500 RPM. Maximum torque, thankfully, comes in at a much lower 2,500. The engine note of this 3-cylinder is such a treat and much more characterful than the monotonous engine drone of a 4-cylinder. Out on the open road, and the Sandero performs surprisingly well, particularly when it comes to keeping up with traffic. With the torque being available so low, you don't easily need to fiddle with the gearbox when going uphill, for instance. This is a very good thing. Another great addition is the gearing. At our national speed limit, the engine runs at about 3,000 RPM, and this on a 5-speed gearbox. This is great for reducing engine drone while driving on a highway. Road noise, however, can be a tad intrusive. It is a city car after all. Out on the twisties, and I immediately noticed 3 things. 1. There is a surprising amount of grip on offer. 2, the steering feels completely lifeless and oddly a bit too light. And 3, there is quite a lot of body roll. It never feels unsafe though. It will get you around the corners, it just won't be that much fun. To help you forget about the relative lack of fun you'll have while driving, you can think about the money you'll save when it comes to average fuel consumption. With the claimed average consumption of 5.2 liters per 100 kilometers. This equates to real-world figures of between 6 and 8 liters per 100 kilometers depending on driving style. That is very good indeed. Thankfully, even though the Sandero isn't the most fun car to drive, it makes up for it by its sheer honesty. This car knows what it is and it isn't afraid to show it. There is such a charm to that. Forgive its humble limitations and you will be more than happy with your purchase. Thank you so much for watching another one of my videos. I thoroughly enjoy making these, and if you enjoy watching them, please be sure to hit that like button. If you want to see more, also make sure that you're subscribed to my channel. I have loads more coming up, so stay tuned. Until next time, bye.